We are currently going through an era of gaming where re-releasing older games on modern hard drives is simply more profitable than making new games. I and many other people wouldn't have such a problem with these remakes if they didn't feel like such cash grabs and empty shells of once beloved games, made specifically for normies who missed out on playing the original, and they would rather lash out €80 than learn how to set up an emulator. Despite me saying all of this, I actually do end up enjoying a lot of these remakes, gameplay wise, but they do come with their own set of problems that can be huge, and I'll go over those problems today, and I'll give solutions on how to fix them. Now in the modern age we have two types of remakes: reimaginings and graphical upgrades. Reimaginings take the idea of the original game and make a whole new game out of it. A perfect example of a video game reimagining is a Resident Evil 4 remake and the Silent Hill 2 remake. These types of remakes change either some aspects of the story or the core combat. However, they still need to have some of the soul of the original and some of the feel of the original. That's why, while the overall gameplay of the Silent Hill 2 remake is completely different from the original, it still has that clunky vibe to it. And alongside the changes with the story and the gameplay, these games sometimes even have their own art style that's different from the original due to the new graphics. Now on the other side of the coin we have graphical remakes. These remakes copy everything from the original and give the game a new updated look. An example of a graphical remake is the Oblivion remake, the Demon's Souls remake, and the Last of Us remake. Now in theory these remakes shouldn't have that many problems because they are basically just ports with the newest possible graphics to make the game look as good as possible. And on the surface this is true. However, the most notable problem with these remakes is that they cost the same as new AAA releases. €80 is too much for, well, most modern AAA games right now, but for a port of a sometimes 20-year-old game, it's a complete joke. I mean, even if these remakes sometimes cost €50, that is still too much just for some updated visuals. This doesn't even take into account that these remakes sometimes, or should I say most of the time, completely ruin the art design of the original. Let's take the new Oblivion remake as an example of this. The remake's dev team didn't even try to capture the art of the original on modern hardware. I mean, just look at the environments. The soul of the original is completely gone. I mean, all they have to do is listen to the development documentary of the original Oblivion and they can already see how much they fucked up.
I've always obsessed over natural foliage and just greenery in games in general. For some reason I think that's really cool. It's just not something that you normally see. And I definitely think it's a fun environment in a game to play in. When you think about all the leaves individually, they're probably pretty close to the same color. But you see them all in a scene like this, there's so much contrast and play of light. In the foreground here is an example of some of our grass that we have in the game. So we've got some ivy in here and some tall grass. Further on, I think there's some sort of generic forest weed types of plants. They really add a sense of movement and life. Like, it really makes the ground feel much more organic than this flat textured surface might. There's kind of a quiet solitude about it, where there may be lots of cool and interesting things going on within the game, but you can sort of know that it's in its own little pocket, so to speak. It's kind of isolated from reality around you.
And they couldn't even watch that. It shows exactly how much these devs care about the original vision. And the same goes for the Demon's Souls remake. While I still do believe it's the best looking game on the PS5, and especially in gameplay, graphics wise this game blows Elden Ring out the fucking water. However, it fucks up on the art design of the original, and fans of the original Demon's Souls have a right to complain about it. The foggy atmosphere of the original was changed for a modern and more, let's say, stylistic look. And it's not just the environments that end up being being problematical. Another problem with graphical remakes is that they change character designs or enemy designs. The original design is either too controversial, like in the Dead Rising remake, so Capcom of course had to race swap a character so nobody gets offended. This was clearly changed for the audience of soy boys that were complaining about Resident Evil 5 enemy designs. Sometimes enemy/character designs will be changed just because the new devs thought they can design the better characters than the original devs. So we get enemy designs like in the Demon's Souls remake, where every single enemy is now generic, or like in the Oblivion remake. I mean, just look at how much they butchered some of the designs. There's no way they were even trying to be faithful to the original, and then some stupid reviewers like IGN will completely ignore this and say that the remake completely captures the vibe and experience and atmosphere of the original. Oh yeah, and another thing I can't forget about is uglifying female characters for some reason. You can call me a schizophrenic, but like I can clearly see it in the Dead Space remake and in the Last of Us remake. However, alongside these problems with the art design in these remakes, the biggest problem of all is that they just feel completely pointless. Especially if the game is already ported onto modern hardware, like Metal Gear Solid 3 for example. The thing I like about the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is how they didn't butcher the character designs and they are staying as faithful as possible. The only thing missing is the piss filter, which I believe could end up just being a filter that you can use in the game. I mean, the Silent Hill 2 remake already had filters, so Metal Gear Solid 3 will also probably have them, so you can capture the vibe of the original. However, despite the designs being as faithful as possible, are you really willing to lash out 80 euros when the game usually gets on sale on the PlayStation Store for 13 euros and the remake looks to change nothing from the original, as we saw from the trailers? And like in my opinion, these graphical remakes should add something to make the game worth it for those who played the original, and so the new players can feel like they truly purchased a definitive version of the game. Maybe add some new weapons or an optional boss fight, something similar to the Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, where they added the Jester as an optional boss fight, and the Special Edition of DMC3 also added Turbo Mode, a completely new way to play the game. So if you bought it, you don't feel like you're getting ripped off, like with a lot of these graphical remakes. So the way to truly make these remakes is not by fucking up the art design, it's about staying faithful to the original art and the vision of the original devs. I believe every single time a graphical remake is being made, the new devs should watch the development documentary of the original, so they know exactly what they have to do. And another thing these graphical remakes need to do is give the remake a reason to exist. Build on the foundation of the original and not over it. Now let's talk about the problems with reimaginings. Unlike graphical remakes, these games change a lot from the original. Sometimes it can be the pacing, sometimes it can be some story elements, sometimes character designs, personalities, and probably most noticeably the gameplay. These changes can end up being good or bad, but unlike with graphical remakes, it's okay because a reimagining is supposed to be different than the original. It's supposed to be a completely new game. However, these changes shouldn't lead to cut content. One of the biggest problems with these reimaginings is that they sometimes cut content from the original, and it's not just like some minimal content, no, it's actually things like whole areas or bosses. I shouldn't even be talking about this, but thanks to the RE3 and RE4 reimaginings I have to. Even though I really liked the Resident Evil 4 remake, there was no reason to cut the U3 boss fight and then add it in as DLC. That's just one of Capcom's scummy tactics. And as for RE3, I don't even want to talk about it. That game was a complete cash grab. When you're reimagining a game, you have to include everything major from the original, like bosses and areas. And while recreating some dialogue sequences or cutscenes from the original, you absolutely shouldn't censor things. An example of this is Pyramid Head in the Silent Hill 2 remake. I don't care what anybody says, he should have been R-wording the mannequin like in the original. It's a very disturbing cutscene and it shows you exactly what kind of monster Pyramid Head is. Another example of censoring things from the original is Leon's dialogue, like cutting his iconic line from his conversations.
Women.
Now as for the changes themselves, what separates a good change from a bad change? Well, it's actually more complicating than you think, because it completely depends on the game you're reimagining. And this leads to my next point. Not every video game needs a reimagining. I mean, what's the fucking obsession with taking an old masterpiece and giving it modern gameplay, modern graphics, with shitty aiming and shitty over-the-shoulder cameras? I mean, why can't you just leave them as they are? Oh wait, because they are a big name in the series, and a lot of people still haven't played them because they refuse to play older video games. Some of these reimaginings shouldn't exist, and the biggest example of this is the Silent Hill 2 remake by Bloober Team. Silent Hill 2 is a creative work of art and it shouldn't be touched. However, let's say a reimagining of an iconic game like Silent Hill 2 is already in development. You really shouldn't change anything. Despite me enjoying Silent Hill 2 remake, it can never coexist with the original, and the game feels completely fucking pointless. Despite the game changing character designs and personalities, gameplay and cutscenes, it still can't stand on its own. And you know why that is? It's because Silent Hill 2 really didn't need a reimagining. The point of a reimagining is taking an older game and making a new game out of it that can stand on its own. Even for remakes I can recommend, like the RE4 remake. You won't be missing much just by playing the original. Why do you even feel the need to reimagine already critically acclaimed video games? You know what games actually need reimaginings in my opinion? Games that are bad, but they have a lot of potential. And a perfect example of this is a DMC 2, the worst game in the Devil May Cry series, and it needs a reimagining more than ever. Give the game a similar combat to the DMC games after Devil May Cry 3. And fix the story while also fixing the characters like Dante because he sucks in Devil May Cry 2. Add new bosses, fix some of the bosses, add new gimmicks to the bosses, change some of the character designs. You can do so much with the DMC2 reimagining. Because quite frankly, while video games are art, DMC2 is not. And DMC as a franchise will have so much benefit from just having a reimagining of Devil May Cry 2, so when you're replaying the series, you don't feel the need to skip a whole game because it was shit. And if you want to reimagine a horror game, how about instead of reimagining actually good Silent Hill games, try reimagining Silent Hill Origins? Because the game has story significance to Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3, but it's probably one of the weakest Silent Hill games we got. It's easy to take an amazing video game and make that same game amazing again, but it's hard to take a shit game and make an amazing game out of it. And that is why no one has ever done it. So in the end, I believe reimagining already great and amazing games is pointless. A reimagining should only exist for games that have lots of potential. However, what should we do with good games that aren't really playable on any other modern console? Well, it's simple. A good game doesn't need a reimagining, only a port or a graphical remake like the Resident Evil 1 remake that will respect the original art design and characters while also adding content that will make the remake feel like the definitive version of the original. Instead of having a Silent Hill 2 reimagining, I'd much rather have a Silent Hill 2 graphical remake that only updates the visuals and it doesn't change character designs. The game also doesn't need to change the gameplay like the reimagining has. It just needs to add a couple of weapons since the original Silent Hill 2 lacks in that department, especially compared to Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3. However, I know these changes will never happen, because as long as these remakes keep selling well, then there's no reason for these developers or publishers to fix the problems or try risking lots of money by reimagining bad games. Hello again guys, and thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and if you want to watch more of my content, make sure to subscribe. This was the last video of my remake/remaster hate arc, and now I'll focus more on game reviews and rankings. As always, leave a comment if you disagree or agree with my opinions, since I love reading the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
You never see it coming.